Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, and this is actually another Patreon a request, again by my good friend jamaral81. And this actually isn't a movie review as much as it is a discussion, because he chose a higher up tier, which you can pick any kind of horror or Batman related discussion or themed topic to talk about. And he wanted me to, which this is the first a discussion request I've had, and he wanted me to talk about, because if you follow my channel, you'll know I am not at all a fan of a certain subgenre in horror. But I like some older ones, and that is, I'm not going to say supernatural because that's very broad and can go down a bunch of different roads, but paranormal, the ghost movie, the haunting movie. Why do I, like, The Shining is my favorite film of all time, has been for almost 20 years. Original Amityville Horror, 1980s The Changeling with George C. Scott, John Carpenter's The Fog. Technically, you could say, or you can't say House on Haunted Hill because of the ending, but all the scares before the ending, it's like a haunted house. Legend of Hell House, so many ghost and haunting movie. Poltergeist, another huge childhood favorite of mine. Why do I love those but have such a strong dislike, contempt, or hatred for these newer ones like the Paranormal Activity series, Grave Encounters, A Haunting in insert state name, the Conjuring spin-offs? Even though I love The Conjuring, I even enjoy Conjuring 2, Insidious, but hate those films. Annabelle, The Nun, Ouija, way too many to name. I didn't hate Sinister as much, my second viewing, as much as I did the first time I saw it. And the answers are actually very simple. It comes down to how they're made. Back then, you had actual filmmakers. You had filmmakers who gave a shit. They had a vision. They actually cared about what was scary. And actually, a number of those times, you had people who had never made a horror film before. Like, if we're also talking like demonic or possession films, William Friedkin who did The Exorcist, Richard Donner, who did The Omen, Stanley Kubrick, who did The Shining, had never really done a horror movie before. I mean, Kubrick has done films with horror elements, but he had never gone full horror like The Shining. And a lot of times, people with no experience like that do make some of the most memorable ones because they just know how to make movies. Nowadays, it just feels like a product. It feels like just, here's an idea, hire a bunch of people to read words that we wrote down, put a couple jump scares, throw it out. That's what it feels like anyway. There's no substance to these newer ones. Let's just get pretty people, put them in a house or put them in a situation, and we'll just make some shit happen. Like, I don't remember which, because I've only reviewed the first 3 Paranormal Activities. I can't remember which one it was, but I did a complete breakdown of what a Paranormal Activity film is based on what I've seen. About, I was like, fuck all happens, a door moves or a blanket moves, fuck all happens, cupboard opens, and I just keep repeating that, and then the kitchen gets fucked up, fuck all happens, someone gets dragged, nothing, and then someone flies at the screen. And first and foremost, that's what it is. You had people that knew how to make films. Like, they knew how to get, like, if it was a comedy, they knew how to get a joke to work on the screen. If it was an action film, they knew how to get the action and the effects on the screen. Horror film, they knew how to capture the scares. They knew they needed actors, like real actors, not just, pretty rejects from the CW. But since we're talking horror, what is the most important thing to a horror film? And that is it scary or effective? And for these films, that's its biggest flaw, is how they're scary. You look at films like The Shining, The Changeling, Amityville Horror. They all have some more methodical than others, but they have a constant build, a constant, like a buildup of tension, foreboding, sense of dread, feelings of unease, where up until a payoff. Newer films, it's just a handful of jump scares. And do I hate every jump scare? Do I hate every film with a jump scare? Absolutely not. You can have a jump scare and have it be effective, but it has to be earned. Jump scares are one of those things you have to earn them to make them effective. Yeah, let's look at one of the biggest jump scares there is, which is the spooky face that pops up, which I think is the one I'm thinking of. I believe it's in the first Grave Encounters film, where it's night vision. There's like that little girl in the corner, and she kind of turns her head, and then she gets like the big black eyes, like the long mouth, like a quick second, and the scream and the music sting. And if a lot of these films, that's what they are. They rely on those. They have just scenes and almost whole movies of no substance, no tension or build up. They just plug these jump scares in there. And here's the thing. I don't call jump scares scary, and I don't consider them to be real, genuine scares, because technically they're just startles. You're sitting there, you're kind of droned out, you have moments of silence, so you're kind of tuned in, then all of a sudden just bah! With loud music, scary face. Yeah, your adrenaline's going a little bit, but in a few seconds, you're fine, and you'll probably forget about it. I mean, take this. Take your biggest, baddest, toughest, scared of nothing friend. He's walking along, mind his own business, and you jump out from behind somewhere and scream, and he jumps. Did you actually scare him, or did you just startle him? Because he was kind of droned out in silence in his own head, and then something happens in front of him. It's a startle. If you earn a jump scare, that's one thing. They can be earned. I mean, again, to look at The Shining, I don't know if this counts as a jump scare. It's a little slower. But on Shining, after Jack Nicholson finally has the axe, we know he's trying to kill his wife, his kid, because he's using the axe to break down the bathroom door to get to him. Then Dick Halloran pulls up, and he's walking through the main lobby of the Overlook, and there's build up there. We've already established that Jack Nicholson is out to kill with an axe. This big isolated hotel out in the middle of nowhere. He's walking through the main lobby, calling out if anyone's home, if anyone's there. There's no music, just the sound of the wind from the snowstorm. It creates atmosphere, and it just keeps building up. Like every pillar that he walks by, it's like another step that he's made into it. And all of a sudden, Jack Nicholson just comes out screaming, hits him with the axe, loud music. That's effective, because you've had build-up, you've had tension, you've established the danger, you've established the potential scare, that's effective. You take these newer films like Paranormal Activity, where nothing happens and then just a door slams shut. Now, I could say even movies that I like has them as well, like Insidious with like the Darth Maul jump scare. Okay, I mean, it's done a little better than in movies of its kind. Or like the woman on top of the dresser on The Conjuring. But a lot of times, especially in Blumhouse films, where you just have either moments of nothing, like characters just talking, no atmosphere, no build-up, and then you just have a loud something happening that's not a scare. You're not actually scaring people. Another effective jump scare, because the scares in the film are haunted house scares. The ending kind of takes it away from that, but House on Haunted Hill. When the woman's upstairs, she's looking around. When she turns around, there's that old woman with the white eyes, which one, it's an eerie appearing, it's eerie looking. And two, it's had atmosphere. There's that silence of her looking around because she heard something. We know something's coming. If she turns around, it's there. It's effective. That image is more ingrained in your mind than just when that little girl turns around and goes back to normal. It's about as effective as those emails that you used to get that had like the pretty landscapes, or like the maze when you move your cursor and it gets more and more narrow and you have to get closer, then the scary face pops up. Yeah, it gets your heart pumping for a few seconds, but then you're fine and you forget about it. That's why there's horror movies from 2014, 15, 16 that people don't even remember anymore. But there's movies from the 70s and 80s that people will talk about forever. Another example, based on like how it looks, it's not a paranormal film, it is supernatural, but it does deal with like a spooky looking thing. The beginning to Suspiria, when the girl has been chased by this unseen force, she gets up to her room, she hears something outside, she looks out her window, and there's just the blackness of night, and then just those two yellow eyeballs, they kind of open and they just stare at her. There's no face, there's no silhouette, just these two yellow eyes in the blackness of night. The mystery of the unseen is scary. We don't know what those eyes are connected to, but just that image and that idea is kind of frightening. Argento would again use that in the spiritual sequel Inferno, which came out 3 years later, which I think that was stylized a bit differently and a bit scarier. It was more of a jump scare in Inferno, but it was earned there as well for all the same reasons. It built dread, built unease, atmosphere. That's how you effectively use a jump scare. If you just have a movie of nothing and then every 10, 15, 20 minutes, you have something loud and scary looking pop up at the screen, it's not scary, it's just a startle. And I know it sounds like I'm bitching about the same things throughout. There are other reasons. I mean, the actors they get, there's nothing to them. These young, pretty actors that are in all these newer movies, there's nothing to them. There's nothing about the characters are not well written or multidimensional at all. The writing tends to be very convenient or profoundly stupid. It just seems to... It's like, we have 5 or 6 jump scares. What is the creative connective tissue that brings them all together? And a lot of times they don't give a shit about the writing as long as they get from beginning to end and their jump scares are in place. So and I guess that sort of goes with execution of the film, which ultimately is what I'm saying. Just those older films like The Shining, Amityville, The Changeling. In The Changeling, there's just that one scene. Well, there's more, but like my favorite scene of The Changeling is George C. Scott starting to think there's something going on in the house. He hears a noise and he looks upstairs, and he's got the light. I believe it's the glow of the fireplace is the only light he has. And there's the staircase that goes up, and it just gets darker and darker to blackness upstairs. And all these balls are bouncing down the stairs. It's nothing profoundly scary. It's something very simple, but just the tension it had up to that one scene is enough to just be really creepy. And I mean, I could sit here and list a bunch that I like and a bunch that I dislike, but it mostly boils down to, well, one, are they good movies? Take the scares completely out of them. I mean, they're usually, these newer ones, I'm going to use Blumhouse as the example. I'm going to say classic, and I'm going to say Blumhouse. But Blumhouse does have some good ones. I mean, not just paranormal, but, or even outside of Blumhouse. I mean, supernatural films. I liked Oculus. I loved The Lodge. I loved The Ritual. The Lodge and The Ritual were very Shining-esque films that I thought were very well done. One thing that's, or if things do stick in my mind from these newer, more modern films, is something that's profoundly stupid. Haunting in Connecticut, which I hate those haunting in whatever state. Like when that young medium, like the manifestation of the ghosts comes out as that shitty CGI ectoplasm. Yeah, based on a true story. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if any of this shit that happened in these based on a true story movies happened, then yeah, we would have proof of ghosts. I know Hollywood blows that shit up all the time. And I know for whatever reason now, more so now because you have more opinionated people and you have the internet that fuels their opinions. I'm not the kind of person where if I watch a movie like, say, Annabelle or The Nun, and I think it's stupid, dumb, ineffective, not scary, which I do about those films, I don't take horror away from the genre. Because opinions do not make genres. I'm sick and tired of horror page people being, well, I didn't think it was scary, so it's not a horror film. Well, your opinion doesn't mean dick when it comes to genre. Your opinion only means if it's good or bad. Even though I hate these movies and I think they're ineffective, they're still horror movies. They're just bad, ineffective horror movies. They're weak horror movies. Like if I hated The Exorcist or hated The Shining, I wouldn't be like, well, I didn't like it, so it's not a horror film. That's not how it works. I hate Adam Sandler, but I still have to call his movies comedies because that's what they are. Your opinion doesn't mean dick. That's a whole other video that I have to do. About how your opinions don't mean shit when it comes to genre. A genre is what it is. This is about paranormal films. I don't really have much more to add. It really is just those older films had way more going for them. They had directors and writers who gave a shit. They were trying to make the best movie possible regardless of what they were making. They take someone like John Carpenter who, made consistently sci-fi or horror movie after sci-fi and horror movie. That's what he was known for. But he kept trying to do the best he could. If there was a flaw in the writing or, the effects, in his older films, he'd be like, this doesn't look right, this could be better, let's fix it. Same with Kubrick. Kubrick was a madman about a meticulous perfection. Or if you just had filmmakers that have never made a horror movie but made other films, they still gave a shit. Whereas nowadays, it seems to be more so just studios saying, hey, Because you know what's coming out soon? Blumhouse, who did Ouija, they're taking that a step further. They're going to make a horror film about the Magic 8 Ball, and they're calling it Magic 8 Ball. So people at Blumhouse are like, well, we got this one concept, let's just get it made. Don't care who makes it or how it's made, let's just get it out there. Yes, I know not all of Blumhouse is supernatural or paranormal, but those are the ones I have a problem with. So, and the jump scares. I mean, when you're watching a horror movie, the biggest thing is the scares, and these modern paranormal films do not have effective scares. Really. It's all jump scares. They're not earned. Jump scares are not scares. They're just startles. And I just find them to be incredibly weak, just shallow films. That there's nothing to them. They're all highly forgettable. And they just feel like products that were pushed out. Other than that, I don't really know what to add. So, jamaral81, I hope this answered your question. But that's kind of all I got right now. I didn't really plan this one out very well. So, I apologize if it just sounded like I was rambling on the same things or giving more or less the same examples over and over again. But this was my first Patreon discussion request. So, hopefully you guys liked it. jamaral81, hope you enjoyed it. And thank you for watching.